Hi there. This is Noveljutsu, and I'm your host, Raelyn. If you caught the last Noveljutsu episode, you'll know that giving your novel the right labels can be essential if you want your readers to find you. You want your book to find its way into the hands of people who will love it, and that means you need to know what area of the bookstore your readers are going to spend the most time. Sometimes finding the right category for your book can be a challenge. Some novels might not sit tidily into a single category, and I think it's fair to say that most novels will feature elements drawing from multiple genres. But you still have to figure out which category is the best fit to find your audience. So that's what this episode is all about. Last time we covered the romance and historical genres, and this time we're going to start with... When it comes to mystery, thriller, and suspense, these genres are sometimes kept separate and sometimes lumped together because they're so often interconnected. I'm going to be lumping them together as well, but there are nuances between them. Not everyone agrees on what those nuances are, and sometimes definitions others use confuse or contradict each other. I'm going to define the three terms in the way that I've best come to understand them, but know that other people will disagree with me. For mystery novels, the plot will focus on a question or mystery that must be solved. This mystery is often a murder, though it can also be a kidnapping, theft, or another crime. And your protagonist will often be a detective or a consultant who takes on the job of discovering the criminal. As the point of these novels is to make your reader problem solve, the face of the antagonist is usually unknown until the final reveal of the story, or maybe just before. Readers of mystery novels will want to be given a cast of suspects, as well as clues that they, alongside your protagonist, can fit together to figure out the mystery and unmask the villain. In thrillers, your protagonist is placed in peril, usually by being targeted by your antagonist, whose identity, unlike in a typical mystery, may already be unveiled to the reader early in the novel. Thrillers often have a note of horror in them, and your readers will want to feel the same fears and doubts that your protagonist feels as they flee or battle this seemingly overwhelming danger. When it comes to suspense novels, your protagonist is once again in peril, but this time they're unlikely to realize there's any threat, or at least may not understand the nature of that threat until much deeper into the story. Your readers, however, should have a sense that something is off, that there's this encroaching danger that the protagonist doesn't see. You want your readers to have a sense of unease. Whether your novel is a mystery, thriller, or suspense novel, hidden motivations, surprising reveals, and making sure you get your plot twists right will be important tasks for you as a writer. There are a plethora of mystery, thriller, and suspense subgenres, but some common ones include: this is the subgenre for your Sherlocks or your Patrick Janes. Your protagonist will often be a detective, but like Sherlock or Jane, doesn't necessarily have to be. Even if they aren't a detective themselves, they will often have an ally or a contact who's in the police force and is capable of giving them access to crime-solving resources they might not otherwise have. Your protagonist may have a quirk or a narrow field of interest that gives them an eye for detail, or maybe a unique perspective that proves an advantage in their sleuthing. The cozy mystery is structured very much like a detective novel and will contain similar sleuthing and intrigue. However, it will not contain the profanity or the gruesome violence allowable in many other mystery novels. Rather than a detective, your protagonist is even more likely to be someone who's not a member of the police force but works with them to solve the crime. This is the category for your Agatha Christie's, your Father Browns, and your Murder, She Wrote. The following procedurals are technically separate subgenres, but they're all effectively detective stories, just with different settings and with a main character whose specialty falls into one of these common categories. In a police procedural, your main character will be on the force, and the story will revolve around the police investigation of a crime. Even though this uses the term thriller, if we're following my preferred definition, a legal thriller is usually more of a mystery than an actual thriller. In any case, much of the drama of your story will involve the courtroom. Your protagonist is likely an attorney solving cases the police have already handled but may not have closed satisfactorily. either due to corruption, incompetence, or a lack of evidence or resources. Whatever the reason for the unsatisfying police work, your attorney will now be either trying to protect a wrongfully accused client, or else trying to keep the guilty from walking free when there's a lack of evidence or evidence that points to somebody else. For medical thrillers, your setting is probably a hospital or a medical lab, and your protagonist is someone in the medical field. They may be attempting to diagnose an unusual illness, or they might be trying to develop a vaccine or otherwise stop a pandemic, or maybe they're trying to use their medical expertise to find evidence necessary to capture a criminal. For forensic mysteries or thrillers, your protagonist is probably going to be in a lab. They will solve crimes using forensic science and tests to provide the police with the evidence they need to close the case. In disaster stories, your protagonist must either escape or stop a disaster from occurring. Often, this is a natural disaster, like a tornado or a volcanic eruption, but it can also be a man-made disaster, such as a terrorist attack or biological warfare. Or maybe it's somewhere in the middle and it's a disaster instigated due to man-made global warming. If your novel features a natural disaster, your first instinct may be to conclude that the disaster itself is the antagonist of your story. But these stories usually include a human antagonist. One reason for this is that it's usually more interesting to see the hero pitted against another being that's capable of existential thought and making decisions based on morality, or a lack thereof. It's exciting to see an antagonist capable of reacting to, or even anticipating, your hero's actions, of actively trying to get in your hero's way. This is why, even if the danger comes from a non-sentient natural phenomena, it might be a good idea to include another human character who stands in the way of your protagonist. If your hero is a scientist warning everyone of an imminent threat, your antagonist might be a politician, maybe a military or police officer, or even another scientist who's trying to discredit your hero or downplay the threat. This is the category for your spies and your double agents. It's common for these stories to be set during a war, or sometimes during the rising tension immediately preceding a war, whether that war is between nations or involves a government dealing with civil unrest, terrorist groups, criminal organizations, and so on. As a spy, your protagonist probably goes undercover. Sometimes they risk their life working their way into the inner circle of evil. Other times they may discover that their own government or organization is the true evil. And still other times they'll learn the truth is somewhere in the middle, and they'll be forced to make a choice. Who do they follow, and who do they betray? In a psychological thriller, your protagonist is going to be thrust into a mystery or dangerous situation that messes with their mental state. They may have delusions, paranoia, or undergo extreme stress that impacts their ability to interpret the world around them in a rational way. Viewing the story through your protagonist's eyes is going to leave your readers wondering how much they can trust of what the character sees or thinks. Alternatively, if your main character's unstable psychology isn't evident until later on, once it's been revealed, it will cast everything your readers previously trusted about your protagonist's view into question. Mysteries, thrillers, and suspense novels are very popular. There are a lot more subgenres than the ones I've listed, so if you think your novel sounds like it could belong in one of these categories, definitely take a deeper look at other subgenres out there. That's it for today. We're working our way through the different genres, but there are still a few more to cover, so be sure to tune in next time if you found this post helpful. Do you like mystery and suspense? Go ahead and comment below with your favorite novels. Have questions or want to suggest a topic for discussion? Feel free to leave a comment down below, or you can hop on over to my blog with your questions and post them there. As always, links to my website and all my social media are down below. If you liked this video, go ahead and give it a like, and consider subscribing and ringing that bell for more Noveljutsu updates. See you next time!